Hey guys, tonight we're heading back to ancient China, to a world of emperors, empresses, and tiny, hungry caterpillars. Imagine yourself standing in a quiet, sun-dappled courtyard. The air is still, but it hums with the gentle rustle of leaves and the soft, munching sound of thousands of tiny jaws. You're looking at a scene that, to the untrained eye, might seem like nothing special, row upon row of small, green leaf trees. But what you're really looking at is the foundation of an empire, the source of unimaginable wealth, and a secret so valuable that revealing it could cost you your life. Now, you probably couldn't survive a day here without a guide. What with the strange customs and the peculiar lack of Wi-Fi? It's a place where a small, unassuming worm holds more economic power than most of the people you see bustling around. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Feel free to drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Our story begins with a legend, as so many good stories do. You find yourself in the palace gardens of a long-ago emperor, sometime around 2700 BCE. The air is warm and sweet with the smell of blossoming trees. You're watching the emperor's wife, Empress Leizu, also known as the silkworm goddess. She's sitting beneath a mulberry tree, sipping tea in the shade. It's a peaceful moment, the kind of quiet afternoon that feels like a painting. But then, as she sips her tea, a small, white cocoon from the tree above falls directly into her cup. The hot water softens the delicate silk threads, and as she reaches to pull it out, she notices that a single, incredibly long strand begins to unwind from the cocoon. This isn't some thick, coarse thread. This is a filament so fine, so lustrous, and so strong that it catches the sunlight and almost seems to glow. She's captivated. It's a eureka moment, the kind of accident that changes the world. Now, whether this specific moment happened exactly as the legend describes it, we can't say for sure. Historians still argue whether Empress Leizu was a real person or a composite figure representing the long, slow process of discovery. But the core of the story rings true. Someone, somewhere, figured out how to unravel the cocoon of the Bombyx mori moth, and that discovery launched an entire industry. The Empress, or whoever it was, immediately saw the potential. She convinced her husband, the Yellow Emperor, to give her a grove of mulberry trees and to teach her ladies-in-waiting how to care for the silkworms, a process known as sericulture. And so, the world's most luxurious textile was born. This is one of those moments in history where a small act of curiosity leads to a monumental shift. You can almost hear the soft click of history changing course, and the story only gets more intriguing from there. The silkworm itself, the Bombyx mori, is a bit of a historical oddity. It's a completely domesticated insect, a fact you might not have known. Unlike a butterfly or a wild moth you might see in your garden, the silkworm moth has been so selectively bred over thousands of years that it can no longer survive on its own in the wild. Its wings are too small for flight, and it has lost its ability to eat once it reaches the moth stage. It literally exists only to mate, lay eggs, and then pass on. It's a tiny, flightless, single-purpose creature, entirely dependent on human care. This close relationship between man and insect is a quirky tidbit that really underscores just how long and how deeply the Chinese were invested in this whole operation. They didn't just farm a bug. They fundamentally altered its biology to serve their needs. You could almost say they created a perfect little silk-producing machine. But that machine, as you'll soon find out, required an immense amount of work and patience. This is the very beginning of the journey. You're standing in the garden with the legend of the Empress and her teacups still fresh in your mind. The sun is starting to set, casting long shadows across the neat rows of mulberry trees. You can hear the faint, distant sounds of the palace, a quiet, gentle life unfolding. But just beyond these walls, a secret is about to be born, a secret that will travel across continents and change the course of global trade forever. And it all begins with a little white worm and a whole lot of leaves. You're no longer in the garden. You've been taken to a special enclosure, a serene and purpose-built structure where the real magic happens. This is the nursery for the silkworms, a place of immense importance and hushed reverence. The air here is still and warm, with a faint, earthy smell of leaves and a subtle, almost sweet aroma that hangs in the air. The sounds are repetitive and rhythmic, a constant, gentle rustling and a quiet, insistent chewing. You look down, and there they are, thousands upon thousands of them. Tiny, almost translucent specks, the larvae of the Bombyx mori moth, having just hatched from their eggs. They're no bigger than a fleck of dust, but they have a single, monumental purpose: to eat. And eat they will, with a dedication that would put a modern-day professional eater to shame. The eggs, by the way, are another fascinating little detail. They're called silkworm seeds, and were so valuable that they were meticulously stored and cared for during the winter. You can imagine the stress of the person in charge of these seeds. One bad frost, one tiny mistake, and a whole year's harvest of silk could be lost. The process of keeping them viable was a delicate dance with nature, a testament to the fact that this wasn't just a job, it was a sacred responsibility. Now, you watch as the tiny larvae are moved onto fresh, tender mulberry leaves. This is the only thing they will ever eat. It's like a 5-star, all-you-can-eat buffet, but with only one item on the menu for their entire short life. Over the next month, you'll watch them grow at an incredible rate. They're like tiny eating machines, their sole function being to consume mulberry leaves and grow bigger. You can hear the sound of their tiny jaws on the leaves, a soft, constant rasping that, if you listen closely, is actually quite relaxing. This isn't the chaotic buzz of a beehive. It's a quiet, methodical hum of production. During this time, the worms will go through 4 molts, or sleeps, as they were called back then. Each time, they stop eating, shed their old skin, and emerge larger and hungrier than before. You can almost feel the anticipation in the air as the silkworms enter their final stage of growth. This is where things get serious. They become plump, almost pearly white, and their bodies take on a slightly translucent quality. This is a crucial phase, and the people tending to them are on high alert. Any sign of disease or distress, and the entire batch could be in jeopardy. It's a bit like being a fussy, overprotective parent, except your children are thousands of worms and their well-being dictates the national economy. A fun, quirky fact is that the silkworm's appetite is so voracious that a single worm can increase its body weight by 10,000 times in just 1 month. To put that in perspective, if a human baby did that, it would weigh as much as an adult elephant by its first month. Imagine the grocery bill. It's an incredible biological feat, and it speaks to the sheer volume of mulberry leaves required to sustain this industry. The amount of labor involved, not just in tending the worms, but in harvesting all those leaves, was immense. This wasn't a small-scale operation. It was a meticulously planned agricultural marvel. You can almost feel the gentle warmth and humidity in the air of the enclosure. The light is soft, filtered through paper windows, creating a calming, ambient glow. There's a stillness to the work here, a quiet focus that feels almost meditative. The people tending to the worms move with a slow, deliberate grace, their hands gentle as they place fresh leaves down. It's a far cry from the hustle and bustle of a marketplace. This is a place of patience, of observation, and of profound respect for the small creatures that provide such an invaluable resource. Historians still debate whether the early Chinese breeders understood the genetics of this process, or if it was simply a matter of careful observation and selective breeding over generations. Did they know they were altering the very nature of the insect, or were they just following a set of practices passed down through millennia? It's a mystery that adds to the quiet mystique of the whole operation. You're left to wonder about the ancient minds that first figured this all out, the quiet genius that saw a humble caterpillar and envisioned a global empire built on its delicate threads. The scene shifts now, from the hushed nursery to the sun-drenched fields just beyond the village. This is where the story of silk truly begins, with the mulberry tree. You're standing in a grove, surrounded by these unassuming, almost unremarkable trees. They're not as grand as an ancient oak or as striking as a weeping willow. They're a bit scrubby, a bit wild-looking, but they are the entire reason you're here. The mulberry tree, specifically the white mulberry, Morus alba, is the single, non-negotiable food source for the Bombyx mori silkworm. No mulberry, no silk. It's that simple. Imagine yourself walking among the rows, the leaves a lush, vibrant green. This isn't a quick-growing crop like rice or wheat. Mulberry trees are a long-term investment. They can live for a very long time, and the older they get, the more leaves they produce. You can feel the quiet wisdom of these trees, their roots stretching deep into the earth, their branches providing the sustenance for a tiny, insatiable caterpillar. The cultivation of these trees was an art form in itself. The ancient Chinese farmers knew every nuance of their care, when to prune them to encourage new growth, how to protect them from pests, and how to harvest the leaves in a way that wouldn't harm the tree. There's a certain peacefulness to this scene. The soft rustle of the leaves in a gentle breeze, the dappled sunlight on the ground, the feeling of ancient history under your feet. This is a place of patience and of cyclical rhythm. The farmers here aren't rushing. They're working in harmony with the natural world, understanding that the greatest rewards come from a slow and steady hand. It's a very different mindset from our modern, instant gratification world, isn't it? You can almost feel the stress leaving your body as you stand here, just observing the quiet hum of nature. One of the most fascinating aspects of this is the sheer scale. A single silkworm consumes an enormous amount of leaves in its short life. Now multiply that by the thousands of worms needed to produce a single bolt of silk fabric. That requires entire groves of mulberry trees. This wasn't just a side project for a few farmers. It was a cornerstone of the agricultural economy, and it was a year-round commitment. While the worms were only active for a few months, the trees had to be tended all year, and the leaves had to be carefully harvested, dried, and stored for when they would be needed. This was a testament to long-term planning and the foresight of a civilization that understood the value of a slow, meticulous process. That a quirky little fact about mulberry trees is that they produce two kinds of flowers on the same plant, male and female, which is a bit unusual. This allows them to self-pollinate, making them incredibly resilient and easy to cultivate. It's almost as if nature designed them to be the perfect food source for these little silk-making machines. They were the perfect biological partner in this incredible historical dance. You can imagine the early farmers realizing this, seeing the way the trees and the worms work together, and feeling a sense of quiet awe at the natural world. And of course, nothing is ever entirely settled. Historians still debate whether other types of mulberry trees were used in early sericulture, or if the white mulberry was always the exclusive choice. The written records are sometimes a bit vague, and archaeological evidence can be open to interpretation. So while the Morus alba is our star, it's possible that other varieties played a supporting role at some point. It's a gentle reminder that even the most established facts about the past can have a layer of mystery to them, a little pocket of the unknown waiting to be explored. As the sun continues to warm the fields, you can almost hear the silent promise being made here. The promise of luxury, of wealth, of power, all born from these simple leaves. From here, the leaves will be harvested and carried back to the enclosure, where the hungry caterpillars await. The cycle is about to continue, a quiet but powerful force that will shape fashion, trade, and politics for millennia to come. The scene shifts once more, this time into the final, critical moments of the silkworm's short life. You're back inside the enclosure, but the mood has changed. The soft, incessant chewing from before has stopped. A quiet anticipation hangs in the air. The silkworms, now fat and creamy white, have reached the end of their feast. They are full, completely, utterly, and happily full. You can see them beginning to move with a strange, searching purpose, looking for a place to begin their final transformation. This is the moment of the cocoon. The people tending to them are now placing small bundles of straw or twigs onto the trays. You watch, mesmerized, as the silkworms climb into these tiny, designated shelters and begin their work. This is the grand finale, the masterpiece they've been preparing for their entire lives. From a small gland on their chin, they begin to secrete a liquid protein, a substance called fibroin. This liquid hardens on contact with the air, and the worm begins to weave it around itself in a figure-8 motion. It's a truly incredible, tireless process. The sound now is a subtle, dry rustling as thousands of worms spin their intricate homes. You can almost feel the rhythmic, repetitive motion of the spinning worm. It's a slow, deliberate dance of creation. The worm will continue this for days, sealing itself inside a perfectly constructed, pearly white shell. This isn't just a home. It's a fortress, a protective layer for its metamorphosis into a moth. And in doing so, it creates the very thing that an entire civilization is built upon. This is where the magic becomes real. A single cocoon is made of one continuous, unbroken silk filament that can be an astonishing 900 to 1,500 meters long. That's roughly the length of 10 to 15 football fields. It's almost mind-boggling to think about. Once the cocoons are finished, they are carefully harvested. This is a very delicate and time-sensitive operation. The cocoons need to be collected before the moth inside has a chance to chew its way out. If it breaks the cocoon, the long, continuous silk thread is cut into many small, unusable pieces. This is why you'll sometimes hear the phrase "killing the chrysalis" in descriptions of sericulture. The cocoons are gently steamed or baked to kill the moth inside, preserving the single, unbroken thread. It sounds a little harsh, but it's a necessary step in the process, one that the ancient Chinese perfected out of economic necessity. That a quirky historical tidbit is that the cocoons of the Bombyx mori moth are almost always white or yellow, but some wild silk species can produce cocoons of green, yellow, or even brown. However, these wild silks were always considered inferior due to their irregular texture and shorter filaments. The domestication of the Bombyx mori gave the Chinese a monopoly on the highest quality, most uniform silk in the world. They were, in essence, the masters of luxury. Historians still debate exactly when the practice of stifling the cocoons became widespread. Was it something they learned very early on, or did it evolve as they realized the economic imperative of keeping the threads intact? There are a few different theories, but the most common one is that it was a slow, practical discovery perfected over many generations of observation. It's a reminder that even the most seemingly simple processes in history were often the result of thousands of tiny adjustments and improvements that you're watching the final cocoons being gathered now, placed into large baskets. The gentle, rhythmic spinning has ceased. The silence is profound. What was a home for a worm is now a treasure, a little white globe of potential wealth. From here, the cocoons will be taken to a new location for the next step, a step that will transform this delicate, natural wonder into a thread that will travel the world and adorn the most powerful people on Earth. The journey of the cocoon isn't over yet. You're now in a different space, a workshop filled with the gentle, rhythmic sounds of machinery and the soft, humid air of steaming water. The cocoons you saw harvested are now soaking in large basins of hot water. This isn't just to warm them up, it's to soften the sericin, the natural gum that holds the silk filament together. Think of it like a protective glue that needs to be melted away. It's a crucial, painstaking first step in what's known as silk reeling. You lean in and watch a worker their hands moving with an almost otherworldly grace. Using a small brush or their fingers, they gently stir the cocoons in the hot water, searching for the end of the silk filament. This part of the process requires an incredible amount of patience and a finely tuned sense of touch. It's a bit like trying to find the end of a roll of invisible tape, but in a pool of hot water. Once they find the end, they carefully pull it, and the filament begins to unravel. This is where you see the genius of the entire operation. That single, fine strand from one cocoon is far too delicate to be used on its own. So, a worker will take the ends from 5 to 10 different cocoons and twist them together. As they do this, the saracen, still a little sticky from the hot water, acts as a natural adhesive, bonding the filaments into a single, stronger thread. This is a brilliant piece of engineering, a natural process harnessed by human ingenuity. You watch as this combined thread is then fed onto a reel, a large wheel that spins slowly and steadily. The thread unwinds from the cocoons in the water and winds onto the reel. The whole operation is mesmerizing, a continuous loop of water, thread, and motion. It's a dance of precision, a gentle but constant pull that must be maintained to keep the thread from breaking. The sound is a soft, wet rustling and a quiet, hypnotic whirring of the reel. It's an ASMR dream come true. Long before anyone even knew what ASMR was, that a quirky fact you might not have known is that not all cocoons were reeled. Some were left to produce moths for the next generation of silkworms. These were the prized specimens, the strongest and healthiest cocoons, carefully selected to ensure the continuity of the process. So, while most of the cocoons were sacrificed for silk, a select few were allowed to complete their cycle, a testament to the long-term thinking of these early sericulturists. Historians still debate the exact invention of the reeling machine. Was it a single invention by one brilliant mind, or was it a gradual evolution of tools over centuries? The archaeological evidence suggests that simple reeling devices existed for a very long time, but they became more sophisticated over the centuries. It's a good example of how technology often develops slowly, with each generation adding a small improvement to the tools of the past. The work here is not rushed. It is methodical, almost meditative. The workers are focused, their eyes on the threads, their ears tuned to the quiet symphony of the reeling machine. You can see the threads building up on the reel, going from a few wet, invisible strands to a thick, shimmering skein of silk. It's a transformation that feels both natural and magical. This is the moment when the worm's work becomes a human product. As the sun streams through the window, illuminating the fine threads and the steam rising from the water, you're left with a feeling of profound tranquility. This is the heart of the silk industry, the place where nature and craft come together in a delicate, beautiful balance. And from here, the thread will move on to the next stage, to be twisted, woven, and dyed into the luxurious fabric that the world would come to crave. The journey continues, and you're now in a bustling, vibrant workshop filled with the gentle, rhythmic clacking of looms. The reels of raw silk thread you saw in the last section have been moved here. But before they can be woven, they need to be prepared. The threads are carefully twisted together to create a stronger yarn, a process known as spinning. This isn't the chaotic, rough spinning of wool or flax. This is a delicate, precise operation designed to maintain the incredible luster of the silk. You can hear the soft whirring of the spinning wheels, a tranquil sound that is the very heartbeat of this place. Once the yarn is ready, it's time for the true masterpiece, weaving. You find yourself standing in front of a giant loom, a complex piece of wooden machinery that looks both intricate and ancient. A weaver sits at the loom, their hands and feet working in a coordinated dance. The sound is a constant, rhythmic clack-clack whoosh as the heddles raise and lower the warp threads, and the shuttle, carrying the weft thread, flies back and forth. It's a mesmerizing process to watch, a true testament to human skill and coordination. The weaver is creating a plain silk fabric, but even this simple cloth is stunning. The light catches the threads, making the fabric seem to shimmer and move. This is the magic of silk. It's a unique triangular cross-section that reflects light at different angles, giving it that famous luster. It's a biological design that human ingenuity has harnessed to create one of the most beautiful textiles in the world. That a quirky fact is that the earliest looms were very simple, but the Chinese quickly developed incredibly complex, multi-person looms that could weave intricate patterns and designs. These looms were so complicated that they sometimes required two people to operate, one person at the top pulling the threads and a second person at the bottom weaving. This draw loom was a huge technological leap and allowed for the creation of incredibly detailed brocades and damasks that would become famous throughout the world. The atmosphere in the workshop is one of focused, quiet concentration. The weavers are not chatting. They're in a state of flow, their bodies and the looms working as one. It's a meditative scene, and if you listen closely, you can almost hear the patterns being born in the rhythmic sounds of the loom. This is a place where time slows down and the hands of skilled artisans transform simple threads into a work of art. Historians still debate the origin of the first draw loom. Was it an independent Chinese invention, or did the idea slowly evolve from earlier designs and possibly even borrow ideas from other cultures? The consensus is that the Chinese developed it independently, but the specific timeline and the names of the inventors are lost to time. It's another one of those historical mysteries that adds to the quiet allure of the past. You can imagine the quiet genius of the person who first figured out how to automate the pattern-making process, a true technological pioneer. This is the end of the first part of the silk-making journey. The cocoons have become thread, and the thread has become cloth. The fabric is now a soft, lustrous canvas, ready for the final, transformative step, the application of color. But for now, you can just sit and watch the rhythmic dance of the looms, the gentle sound, a lullaby that carries you back thousands of years. The weaving is done, and the silk fabric is a pristine, creamy white. But a fabric without color is like a story without a voice. You've now moved to the dyeing workshop, a place that smells of damp earth, rich plants, and simmering pots. The air is thick with steam and the vibrant hues of the natural world. This is where the fabric truly comes to life. The ancient Chinese didn't have a modern chemical factory to produce their colors. Instead, they were masters of natural pigments, and their recipes were guarded as closely as the secret of silk itself. You watch as a master dyer dips a piece of silk into a pot of simmering liquid. The fabric goes in a pale white and emerges a deep, earthy red. This red, you learn, comes from the root of the madder plant. It's a color of warmth, of passion, and of life itself. The whole process is incredibly hands-on, a careful dance of temperature, time, and technique. For blues, they would use indigo, a plant-based dye that could produce an entire spectrum of shades, from the palest sky blue to a deep, inky navy. The fabric would be dipped multiple times, with each dip deepening the color. This was not a quick process. It required patience and a keen eye to achieve the perfect shade. And for yellows, they would use the bark of the cork tree or the flowers of the pagoda tree. It's a wonderful example of how ancient people were so in tune with their natural environment, able to find and extract beauty from the world around them. That a quirky fact you might not have known is that the color purple was incredibly difficult to create and was therefore reserved for emperors and the highest officials. It wasn't derived from plant, but from a particular type of mollusk, a sea snail found in the Mediterranean. So, while the Chinese had their own incredible range of colors, purple was often a color that had to be imported, making it a symbol of immense wealth and power. Historians still debate whether all of the earliest dyes were plant-based, or if some mineral-based dyes were used as well. The archaeological record is sometimes incomplete, and it can be hard to tell exactly what was used to achieve a specific color. For example, some vibrant blacks could have come from certain mineral compounds. The truth is likely a blend of both, with the plant-based dyes being more common and the mineral dyes being used for specific, hard-to-achieve shades. You watch as the dyed fabrics are hung to dry, a vibrant tapestry of reds, blues, yellows, and greens billowing gently in the breeze. The colors are rich and deep, a far cry from the stark whiteness of the raw silk. This is the final step in the physical creation of the fabric, a beautiful act of transformation that turns a simple thread into a work of art. The gentle, humid air and the quiet, rhythmic work of the dyers are incredibly soothing. You can almost feel the softness of the fabrics and the warmth of the sun as it dries them. The journey from worm to fabric is almost complete, and the final result is truly something to behold. The looms are silent now, the dyeing vats cool. You're in a new space, a simple, low-ceilinged room, where the light is soft and the air is filled with the scent of human effort. This is the home of a weaver, and you're standing in her shoes for a moment, experiencing the rhythm of her daily life. This wasn't a factory job in the modern sense. It was a life's work, often done within the family home. The day starts early, long before the sun is fully up. You wake up on a simple mat. The cool morning air, a gentle shock to your skin. The first task isn't the loom, but the kitchen. The family needs to be fed, the house tidied. Life, after all, isn't just about weaving. But the loom is always there, a silent partner in the corner of the room, waiting. The work is constant, but it's not rushed. There's a certain meditative quality to the repetitive motions. The raising and lowering of the heddles, the flying of the shuttle, the gentle pressure on the treadles. It's a rhythm that becomes a part of you, a muscle memory passed down through generations. The work is physically demanding. You can feel the ache in your back and the calluses on your hands. The light needs to be good, so you're often working near a window or an open doorway, with the sounds of the village providing a quiet soundtrack to your work. The neighbors are also weavers or farmers or dyers. The whole community is a part of this intricate system, a giant, human-powered machine working together to create something beautiful and valuable. That a quirky fact is that the designs and patterns woven into the silk often held specific cultural significance. Certain patterns, like dragons or phoenixes, were reserved for the imperial family, while others, like geometric shapes or flowers, were used for everyday clothing. So, a weaver wasn't just creating a piece of cloth, she was telling a story, weaving a piece of a larger cultural tapestry into every thread. It was a role that was both creative and steeped in tradition. Historians still debate the specific social status of a weaver in ancient China. Were they considered skilled artisans, respected for their craft, or were they just one small part of a larger, mostly agricultural labor force? The truth likely lies somewhere in the middle. Their skills were highly valued, but they were not part of the elite class. They were the essential engine of the silk industry, the hands that turned thread into treasure, and their quiet, rhythmic work was the foundation of an empire's wealth. You can almost feel the gentle weight of the fabric on your lap, the soft texture of the silk against your skin. This is a life of quiet dignity, of constant labor, but also of immense pride. To create something so beautiful, so sought after, from a tiny worm and a simple loom. That's a kind of magic, isn't it? The day ends as it began, with the setting sun and the sounds of the village fading into the soft chirp of crickets. The loom stands silent once more, waiting for the new day, and you can finally rest. The fabric is woven, the colors are brilliant. But this isn't just a piece of cloth. You've moved into a different part of the village, a space where the finished silk is being presented. Here, you start to understand the true power of this textile. In ancient China, silk wasn't just clothing. It was a form of currency, a symbol of immense social significance. It was a physical representation of your place in the world. Imagine walking through a bustling marketplace. You see people wearing rough hemp or simple cotton tunics. These are the clothes of the common people, practical and durable. They serve their purpose. But then you see a government official, their robe a shimmering, deep blue, the color and quality of the silk a clear indication of their rank. You see a wealthy merchant, his wife dressed in a delicate, embroidered silk robe that catches the light with every step. Their clothes aren't just for warmth. They're a public declaration of wealth and power, a visual language that everyone understands. And a quirky fact is that the value of silk was so high that it was often used to pay officials, soldiers, and even taxes. It was a stable and universally desired commodity, far more portable and valuable than a wagon full of grain. This is a very different way of looking at cloth, isn't it? We see it as something to wear, but they saw it as a store of value, a tangible representation of their economic might. Historians still debate the specific value of silk in relation to other goods. How many bolts of silk was a horse worth? How many yards could buy a new house? The records are fragmented, but we know it was an incredibly valuable commodity. It's worth fluctuating based on quality and availability. This uncertainty adds to the mystique of the time. We know it was valuable, but the exact exchange rate is a little fuzzy. You can almost feel the weight of this knowledge. To wear silk was to wear your status. To trade in silk was to trade in the power of an empire. The quiet work of the weavers, the patient cultivation of the mulberry trees, all of it culminates in the social and economic power of this shimmering fabric. It's a testament to how something so small and delicate could come to define a civilization. The secret of silk is no longer a secret within China, but it is a tightly guarded one from the outside world. The shimmering threads you've seen woven in a fabric are about to go on a journey, an epic trek across deserts and mountains to a land far away. You are now a part of this journey, a phantom traveler on the Great Silk Road. The name itself is evocative, isn't it? It conjures images of caravans laden with goods, of dusty trails, and of ancient wonders. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of the Gobi Desert, the sun setting in a blaze of orange and purple. The air is dry and cool, and you can hear the soft, rhythmic tread of camels walking in a long, winding line. You're part of a caravan, not a merchant yourself, but an observer. The goods being carried are not just silk, but spices, porcelain, and other precious commodities. But the most valuable, the most sought-after cargo is the silk. It's packed tightly in bales, protected from the elements, and treated with a reverence usually reserved for religious relics. The journey is not easy. You trudge for weeks on end, facing the harsh realities of the desert, scorching days and freezing nights. You encounter nomads, bandits, and rival caravans. This isn't a quick trip to the store. This is a multi-year odyssey, with the goods changing hands many times along the way. Silk from China will be traded in Central Asian oases for furs or horses, which would then be traded further west for silver and gold. The value of the silk would increase exponentially with every mile it traveled from its source. But a quirky fact is that the Silk Road wasn't a single, paved road like a modern highway. It was a network of routes, a series of trails that crisscross continents. The road was a concept, a web of trade and cultural exchange that connected the East and the West for over 1,500 years. It's a reminder that even in ancient times, the world was far more interconnected than we often imagine. Historians still debate the true origin of the term Silk Road. Was it a phrase used by the people of the time, or was it coined much later by a German geographer? The consensus is that the term was a modern invention, a poetic way to describe this ancient network. It's a gentle reminder that some of the most famous names in history were given long after the fact. As you sit by campfire under a vast, star-filled sky, you can't help but feel a sense of wonder. The world is so big, and yet the thread of a tiny worm is able to connect its farthest reaches. This is the power of a single idea, a single invention, to transcend borders and bring people together in a shared pursuit of beauty and wealth. And as the fire crackles and the stars begin to blur into a soft, sleepy haze, you can rest, knowing that the journey is well underway. The caravan is gone, and the echo of its passage fades into the wind. But the secret of silk, the very heart of its value, is still held tightly in the hands of the Chinese. You're now in a different place, a bustling city where the demand for silk is constant and the measures to protect its origins are severe. The Chinese government, acutely aware of the wealth generated by their silk monopoly, enforced strict laws to prevent the secrets of sericulture from leaving the country. Imagine a government decree so powerful that revealing a farming technique could lead to the death penalty. That was the reality. You can almost feel the weight of this law. The knowledge of how to breed silkworms and cultivate mulberry trees was a state secret, a national treasure to be protected at all costs. The punishment for smuggling silkworms, eggs, or even mulberry seeds out of China was execution. This wasn't a gentle slap on the wrist. This was a serious life or death matter. It created an atmosphere of extreme secrecy and caution around the entire industry. That a quirky fact is that this was one of the earliest and most successful examples of industrial espionage. The rest of the world, especially the powerful Roman Empire, was desperate to get their hands on the secret. They knew that the Chinese had the source of the world's most coveted fabric, but they couldn't figure out how. It was an intellectual Cold War, with the prize being a tiny worm and a handful of leaves. Historians still debate the effectiveness of these laws. Did they truly stop the secret from getting out? Or did they just slow down the inevitable? The truth is a little of both. For centuries, the Chinese monopoly held firm. The journey of silk from east to west was controlled, priced, and managed by a series of intermediaries, each one adding to the cost and ensuring that the final product was astronomically expensive. The laws were effective enough to protect the secret for a very long time. But as we'll soon see, human ingenuity and a desire for luxury are forces that can overcome even the most severe punishments. The lure of wealth was a powerful motivator. It was only a matter of time before someone found a way to outsmart the system. You're moving east now, away from the core of the Chinese empire and towards its neighbors. The secret of silk, for all its protection, could not be contained forever. The relentless desire for this luxurious fabric and the immense wealth it represented meant that sooner or later, the secret had to spread. The first cracks in the Chinese monopoly appeared in a way that feels surprisingly organic and almost gentle, a slow diffusion of knowledge rather than a grand act of espionage. This is the story of how silk reached Korea and Japan. Imagine yourself on a small boat, sailing across the calm, blue waters from the mainland to the Korean peninsula. The wind is soft and the sun is warm. It's a peaceful journey, but you're carrying a priceless cargo. Not finished silk, but the knowledge of how to create it. According to legend and historical accounts, the secret of sericulture wasn't stolen at first. It was shared. Chinese immigrants and traders, a bit less worried about the draconian laws once they were outside the direct control of the emperor, began to teach the Koreans the art of raising silkworms and cultivating mulberry trees. This wasn't a sudden event, but a slow, gradual process, a cultural exchange that happened over many generations. From Korea, the secret then made its way to Japan. Legend has it that a Chinese prince and his entourage brought the knowledge with them to Japan in the 3rd century AD. This is another example of a peaceful transfer of technology, a kind of cultural osmosis that occurred over time. The Japanese, with their meticulous craftsmanship and appreciation for beauty, embraced the art of sericulture and weaving, developing their own unique styles and techniques. A quirky fact is that the Japanese even developed their own species of silkworm, known for its particularly large cocoons. It's a testament to how they took the core Chinese technology and made it their own, adapting it to their climate and their aesthetic sensibilities. Historians still debate the specific timeline of this diffusion. Was it a single event, a group of people bringing the knowledge over at one time? Or was it a continuous flow of information over many years? The historical records are a bit fuzzy, but the consensus is that it was a slow, deliberate process, not a sudden revelation. It was the kind of thing that happens when cultures interact over a long period of time, a quiet sharing of ideas and techniques that could have monumental consequences. The secret was no longer exclusively Chinese, but it was still a well-guarded secret of the East. The West, however, was still in the dark, and their desire for silk was reaching a fever pitch. The secret of silk has spread, but only to the East. The Roman Empire, however, is on the other side of the world, and their obsession with this fabric is reaching a fever pitch. You're now in the bustling marketplace of ancient Rome, a cacophony of sounds and smells. The merchants are hawking their wares. The citizens are going about their daily lives, but you can feel the constant presence of one commodity: silk. Silk was not just a luxury in Rome. It was a symbol of incredible wealth and exoticism. You can see it on the richest patricians, women and men alike, their togas and stolas made from the finest, translucent silk. It was so light and so comfortable that it was a sensation. But it was also incredibly expensive. The Romans had to pay for it with vast quantities of gold, which was being drained from their economy at an alarming rate. Pliny the Elder, a Roman author and naturalist, famously complained that the empire was sending immense sums of money to distant nations for luxuries like silk, which he considered a frivolous waste of money. You can almost hear his exasperated tone. That a quirky fact is that the Romans didn't actually know where silk came from. They thought it was a plant fiber spun from the leaves of a tree, or perhaps a type of wool shorn from a strange animal. They called the people who brought it to them the Ceres, which means the people of silk. The Romans knew they were getting it from somewhere in the East, but the true origin was a mystery, lost in the vastness of the Silk Road. The idea that this magnificent fabric came from a humble worm was completely alien to them. Historians still debate the true economic impact of the silk trade on the Roman Empire. Was it a major cause of their economic decline, or was it just one of many factors? The consensus is that while the silk trade didn't single-handedly bankrupt the empire, it was a significant drain on their gold reserves and a constant source of frustration for their leaders. It was a tangible example of the Roman elite's insatiable desire for luxury, a desire that was often at odds with the needs of the empire. You can feel the frustration and the desire in the air. The Romans wanted silk, they needed silk, but they couldn't make it themselves. The monopoly was still holding, and the secret was still safe in the hands of the East. The stage is now set for one of the most famous acts of industrial espionage in history, an act that would finally break the Chinese monopoly and bring the secret of silk to the West. The Roman obsession with silk continues to grow, and their frustration at not being able to produce it themselves reaches a boiling point. The stage is set for a truly incredible story, a real-life tale of ancient espionage that sounds more like a spy movie than a historical event. You are now in Constantinople, the heart of the Byzantine Empire, around the year 550 AD. The Emperor, Justinian I, is a man who loves his luxuries, and he is tired of paying exorbitant prices to the Persians and other intermediaries for silk. He wants the secret. He wants his own source of this magnificent fabric. And then 2 Persian monks appear. They are not merchants or soldiers. They are missionaries who have traveled to the far reaches of Asia, and they have a story to tell. They tell Justinian that they know the secret of silk. They have seen the silkworms, they have seen the mulberry trees, and they know the entire process. They are willing to bring the secret back to the Byzantine Empire, but they can't bring the trees or the worms in plain sight. They have a plan. You can almost feel the tension in the room as they present their plan to the emperor. They won't bring back a wagon full of worms or an entire tree. That would be impossible. They will bring back the silkworm eggs, a much more portable and concealable piece of cargo. And where will they hide them? Not in a chest, not in a sack, but in the hollowed-out insides of their bamboo walking sticks. It's a brilliant, simple, and audacious plan that a quirky fact is that the monks' mission was a success. They returned to Constantinople with their precious cargo, and Justinian was able to begin his own silk industry. This was the moment the Chinese monopoly, which had lasted for thousands of years, was finally and irrevocably broken. It was a single small act of smuggling that changed the course of economic history forever. Historians still debate the exact details of this story. Was it really two monks or was it one? Did they really use bamboo walking sticks? Or is that just a romantic flourish added to the story later? The core of the story is almost certainly true, but the specific details may have been embellished over time. It's a good reminder that history is often a blend of fact and legend, with the human desire for a good story sometimes winning out. Regardless of the exact details, the result was the same. The secret of silk was now in the West, and a new era of global trade and production was about to begin. The rhythmic sounds of the looms would no longer be confined to the East. They would now echo through the halls of Byzantium, and eventually, all of Europe. The secret of silk is out. The monks have delivered their precious cargo, and the world is forever changed. You're now in a quiet, modern room, looking back on this incredible journey. From a small, unassuming worm in ancient China to a global commodity that drove empires and defined luxury. The story of silk is a testament to the power of a single idea. The rhythmic sound of the looms, the gentle rustle of mulberry leaves, the soft hum of the reeling machine. All of these sounds are now part of a global symphony. The Byzantine Empire, with its newfound knowledge, began its own silk production. The looms of Constantinople started to clack and whir, producing silk that was just as fine, if not finer, than its Chinese counterpart. This broke the Chinese monopoly and led to a new era of global competition. Over time, the knowledge spread to other parts of Europe, particularly to Italy and France, which would become famous for their silk industries. The city of Lyon in France, for example, became a world-renowned center for silk weaving. Its intricate patterns and designs a testament to the legacy of a tiny worm from thousands of miles away. The impact of this journey is still felt today. When you see a silk tie, a silk scarf, or a silk dress, you're looking at a direct descendant of that original discovery by Empress Lezhu. You are seeing the culmination of thousands of years of human ingenuity, patience, and a little bit of industrial espionage. The silk that was once a symbol of immense wealth and power is now much more accessible, but its history still lingers in every thread. Historians still debate whether the Byzantine silk was truly as good as the Chinese silk in the early days of its production. The raw materials might have been the same, but the ancient Chinese had a millennia-long head start on the techniques of weaving and dyeing. The consensus is that it took some time for the Byzantine silk to reach the level of its Chinese predecessor, but it eventually did, cementing its place as a new global power in the silk trade. The sun is setting on this quiet, modern room. The journey is over. The narrative winds down, and the sounds of the past begin to fade. You can still hear the gentle, rhythmic sounds of the looms, the quiet hum of the reeling machine, but they are distant now, a part of a sleepy, faraway memory. The story of silk is a story of quiet beauty, of patience, and of a world that was connected by a single, shimmering thread. The ancient world is now a whisper, a soft and gentle memory that can help you drift off to sleep. The air around you is still and calm. The sounds of the day are fading. You can feel your breathing slow, your muscles relaxing. The images of the past, the sun-dappled courtyard, the patient weavers, the dusty caravan trails are all blending together into a soft, hazy dream. The world of history is a peaceful place, a quiet space where you can let your mind wander and your body rest. Let go of any thoughts or worries. Just let yourself sink into the quiet. The story is over. The journey is complete. All that's left is this moment of calm, this gentle transition into sleep. You've traveled far tonight, from ancient China to the modern day, and now it's time to rest. Close your eyes. The world of history is here for you whenever you need it, a quiet and comforting presence. Until next time, sweet dreams.